I kept learning from Phyllis what it meant to have grace. And it's something that I need to work on. And she always found the grace in a situation. So when she decided that her husband also worked for the city,
Brooks, 20 years,
Brooks,
2
20
days.
years, and he leaves, and Phyllis decides she's still going to stay with the city, but she's going to figure out another chapter for herself. Is that about the right time frame?
Yes.
And the right chapter had to do with chocolates. Tell us why.
Well, it wasn't intentionally going to be chocolates. I just knew there was something else I was supposed to be doing. And when I was a kid, I'm going to way back machine, my mom had many entrepreneurial options in her life. One was a ceramics studio in our house. And then I was probably about 10 or so, she just announced she was going to be making chocolate. It was the 70s, you could do those things. The health department wasn't going to come check on you. And it turned out she was pretty darn good at it. It was pre-Google, anything other than other ladies talking to each other about how, well, how did you do that, Cass? And she's like, well, we played around for it for a bit, and the fondant was a little dry, so we just added more cherry juice. So that was how it was done, and I still have it written down on the back of an envelope. But at the end of her life was dementia and Alzheimer's, and it really took away that part of her. And after she passed away, I just literally woke up one morning and said, I'm going to go to enroll in L'École Chocolat. Not because I was planning on doing anything, but I wanted to connect with my mom one more time in an environment that was a happy time for both of us. And I came back from a program in Italy and said to my husband, I don't want to be 85 looking back saying I wish I had tried. And I then tried.
And then there were chocolates.
And that was 10 years ago, right.
You worked with Holy Cross nuns. You
Yes.
worked with a lot of charity things before you ever got to Park City. You had a background in serving.
Yes, because I was raised in a family that had a background in social justice. I never thought I'd be saying the words. That's one of the best things I ever did was worked for the Sisters of Mercy. I mean, I was raised, a good Catholic girl. And a friend of mine approached me about coming to work for the sisters. They had a housing arm of the Sisters of Mercy. They actually had two. They had sold their mother house in Potomac, Maryland. But they took part of the money and they put it in for the sisters' retirement, and the rest of it they used to create this thing called the Macaulay Institute, in which that provided us with a fund that we could provide low interest, no interest loans and technical assistance to primarily affordable housing programs and emergency shelter programs that were benefiting women and children. I was a little nervous until a friend of mine drew this little diagram, and she said, here are the Republicans, here are the Democrats, and here are the Sisters of Mercy. And the Holy Cross sisters are over that way too. So I learned from some incredibly committed women and became just beautiful friendships with them, and had, good conversations too about, in such a patriarchal life that you live in, how do you do it? And they are just fully committed to just continuing to just make the next advance. And it was just a good lesson that sometimes it's just little stones, little pebbles that we're going to be turning over, and we just have to be committed to the outcome even though we may not see it.
All right, so continuing with the chocolates, you back to the little place in Prospector Square. I do remember you had a big order, and I walked in one time, and Rhoda, who also worked with you at the city, the two of you looked like Lucy and Ethel in that, episode with the chocolates flying and eating them, and the order was not coming together.
No. We also discovered that Rhoda has very warm hands, and we had triple gloved them, and we decided that handling chocolate was not going to be her task. But Rhoda also is an artist at heart and was always good about bringing me back into color theory and helping me grow that part of the creativity, because that was the other thing. Being in this program in Italy reminded me that I loved what I did in the city as the public affairs manager, doing the emergency communications parts. Affordable housing was still within our team.
A complete geek is what she's trying to say.
But it wasn't until I was getting my hands dirty, or not dirty, sorry, we never get dirty hands as a chef.
Chocolate, you were getting your hands
chocolatey, that I realized I was missing creativity in my life. And that was something that really helped, that really blossomed working with chocolate.
The chocolate keeps getting more interesting. Brooks, when he reaches his 20 years, says, I'm running screaming barefoot out the door from the city. And you guys decide it's time to rethink kind of where things are.
Yeah. We have my husband has some old family property on the west shore of Lake Tahoe, so we would spend a lot of time in the summers in particular driving the 400 miles across the state of Nevada. And then when you're coming home and you hit the state line, you're like, oh, I still have 3 more hours to go before I get to Park City. I should be home by now. So we always figured we would end up somewhere closer to the lake. We were both clearly at a point of change in our lives. We weren't really sure what it was, what we were going to do, but we drew a big, 1-hour radius around the cabin and handed it to a local real estate agent there and said, we want to live somewhere here. And that took a couple of years to find.
It was right around COVID-y, pre-COVID and then COVID.
Right. We physically moved to the third quarter of 2019, so nothing like trying to create community when the world shuts down and build out a new chocolate shop. But that's what we do, right? We just keep on keeping on.
And so you did, in a spectacular way. And you opened an actual storefront,
yes,
which you didn't have prior to that.
No.
And you started seeking out different ways to make chocolate, different sources for your chocolate.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So when I first started with Tandem Chocolates is the name of the company. When we first started, I was learning the ropes. I was learning all the things that I didn't know, and I fell in love with the food science of what we were doing. And so that became kind of the piece that I really wanted to understand the science behind what we were working with, not just, here's a recipe, but why does it work, or why doesn't it work? And then when we moved and building out the storefront in Reno, we became a little bit more direct about what we were doing and why. And most of it became from our sourcing, is that we source our chocolate from a women-owned chocolate company in Ecuador who works directly with all of the farmers. It is ethically sourced and ethically grown. The farmers are paid not just the fair wage, living wage. They're paid a price for their beans that they actually can have a life with. It's not a subsistence existence. And those things matter to me, and they matter because it's, they're real people and real lives. And chocolate is a commodity. I mean, it is traded exactly the same way that oil and wheat is traded. And we were topped out over $10,000 a metric ton about 18 months ago, and it's usually about $2,000 a metric ton because of climate change impacts, primarily in Africa.
You have traveled to all kinds of places on the planet to ostensibly taste chocolate and other things. Where does it most resonate with you, the power of chocolate?
Ecuador. I mean, Ecuador is the cradle of chocolate. It is the birthplace of chocolate. And chocolate it's beautiful craft chocolate. It's beautiful beans that are grown. They go back not just generations, but it's thousands of years. I mean, think, Columbus and Cortez and all the other people who weren't all that kind, to put it gently. But now what we see is about 80% of all the chocolate grown in the world now is grown in Africa, primarily Ivory Coast, about 70%, the rest of it, a big chunk from Ghana, and then smaller from like Madagascar, Tanzania, Uganda. Ugandan chocolate, by the way, so fudgy, so beautiful, like the crust of around a brownie, the crusty edges. Yeah, find Ugandan chocolates.
We'll go seek those out, yeah.
So it's just, they're two very different models. I mean, it's very industrial chocolate, but there's also very committed craft bar makers who are using those beans, who are buying the beans from the smaller growers. Ritual Chocolate's an excellent example of a really ethical chocolate maker, because it's about the people, it's about the land, and it's about that relationship.
Well, when you say it's about the people, it's also about the people you employ, and that what you do with your chocolates as continuing service in life.
Yeah, exactly. We have on our windows at the shop, we have 3 words: create, connect, and collaborate. And that's kind of the heart of what Tandem Chocolates is. And we've been evolving. I mean, we still have a storefront, but we have been moving more into this discussion of chocolate, creating chocolate as an experience. Part of that lets me do that education part and the information part and connect real people. So you'd be like, no, here's Francisco. These are his beans, kind of thing. For having that transparency in those transactions. So eat well, do good.
Yes, yes. You've won a fistful of awards. What is your next goal for the company? Where do you want to see it 3 years from now?
Yeah, we've just taken really a major transition, and I just signed a 5-year lease. There was a lot of angst. I mean, Terry was on the phone witness a Christmas or 2 Christmases ago or something, me kind of hysterical. Like, what have I done? How many here have your own business? It is freaking hard. I mean, I can bake chocolate all day long, but oh my gosh. Every once in a while I'm like, oh, I hope that order comes in because that bin's getting kind of low. It is really hard, so hats off to everyone who runs their own business, and it has given me a whole new level of appreciation for shopping local. It's like, you make it here, I'm buying it. I'm not even going to ask you what the price is. I realized what I did is I jumped into a model that just existed. How do we run a retail store? How do you run a business? Without the understanding of what was the business I wanted to run. I knew I wanted to be in chocolate. I wanted to work in chocolate. I love chocolate. I love the people in chocolate. I love the farmers. I love being able to go and see this amazing plant grow. 20 degrees north and south of the equator, best places to travel. But it was really this past summer, I did some hard work. I hired a mindset coach to really kind of get me out of, well, this is how you do it. This is the model. But why can't we have more models? Why can't we have different ways of doing things? So we actually we've kind of rebranded part of the Tandem Chocolates to be called Tandem Chocolate Studios, where we're hosting tastings and we're hosting pairings, and we do a lot of classes. And I love people coming in and they're painting their molds and they're knocking something out on the table and they're picking up this beautiful shiny piece of chocolate and be like, oh my gosh, I made that. And at the end of the class, we had this happen on New Year's Eve. We were doing making Happy New Year's bars, and as you were making the bars, you had to say what your word was going to be for the coming year. Not your resolution, but just what's your word. At the end of the class, everyone's packing up the bars. People stayed, and they were like looking at everybody else's, and oh my gosh, they're like hugging, wishing each other Happy New Year. 2 people were exchanging cards. And so chocolate is a community building piece. And I realized that that's the passion I have. It's like, you come into my shop, I want to talk with you. I want to say, oh, do you like savory? Well, maybe. Well, here, try this piece of rosemary and honey. Or, do you like white chocolate? No, I hate it. Trust me, try it. But then we talk about it, and then their kids come in, and we've got this huge mural on the wall with a monkey and everything else. And so it's a community place. It's a place where we connect, even if it's just for a moment. And then you leave, and you're leaving with a smile. Or you're leaving, feeling good about yourself because you just made this amazing piece of chocolate art. And it's going to carry over. It carries over to when you stop to get gas, or you're stopping at the grocery store, and you're going to be smiling, and somebody may be having a pretty crappy day and just being in a different mind space. And I like to think that we can all bring those moments of delight, and that's actually is my word for 2026, in all those things that we do. So that's it.
World peace through chocolate. I mean, I think that's kind of sums it up, and it's so tasty. And I am so grateful that Phyllis came out to be a part of TED Women today.
Thank you.